Hello and welcome back to the scorchingly beautiful Aberdeenshire coast. It's actually the same day today as I filmed some of my last video that you will have seen on Sunday about photographing up close and little sort of macro-y style close-up shots of insects and everything. And as I say, it's an absolutely scorching day today. It was getting far too hot actually photographing the insects in the sheltered bit, so I've now come to the cliff's edge to just try and get a little bit of you know, sea breeze to cool down a little bit. But as I'm here, I've actually just come across a very unique and interesting photography opportunity. Now, when people come out to do wildlife photography, I find a lot of people, especially people maybe who are quite new to it, which I myself am included in this, although I've done wildlife photography on and off now, probably for about 5, maybe 6 years. It's not something I do very often, so I'm definitely not an expert or a professional wildlife photographer. But one thing that I find I've always done, and that I've seen a lot of other people doing, is taking those stereotypical portrait shots of wildlife. And if you're photographing seabirds like I'm doing today, those stereotypical sort of flying shots which I showed you in last Thursday's video, which is actually something I've never done before, so I thoroughly enjoy doing them. But I recently read an article online about showcasing wildlife in their landscape and showing them interacting with the landscape that they live, that they breed, and that they interact with. And it's been in the forefront of my mind ever since I read this article. And totally not planned today. As I say, I've come here just to get a bit of fresh air to cool me down. I've come across this really interesting spot, and it's these two rocks very near the cliff's edge where the waves are coming in off the sea and they're crashing against these rocks, breaking against them, causing some really nice interesting patterns and detail in the sea. But because they're so close to the cliff's edge, there's also a lot of seabirds flying over them. Now, the location I am today is very well known for its gannets, but it's also home to kittiwakes, razorbills, guillemots, the odd puffin, and you've still got the herring gulls as well that will be flying around here. And the good thing about this spot that I'm at just now is that all of these different species are flying over the sea, and it's creating some interest. I'm not just photographing the gannets that everybody comes here to photograph, I'm photographing all the species of birds. But I'm doing something to showcase them in their landscape, and I'm now going to showcase this to you and explain more to you what I'm doing, because I think this is quite a unique way of doing landscape photography, and it's something that I've seen a lot of professional landscape photographers do, and a lot of people who have won wildlife photography awards have done this style of wildlife photography. But it's something I've never done, and it's something unique, so I thought I'd share my thoughts with you and show you what I'm doing. So these two rocks here are the ones that I'm focusing on, and if I zoom in, you will see that we've got sort of crashing waves coming in over them, and you can see all the seabirds circulating around it, creating interest and diversity. And then you have these crashing waves coming in and going over the rocks too, which is causing, like, literally every second I look at this, the scene is different. Whether it's the shapes in the sea, the crashing waves, the way the rocks are sticking out, and the way the birds are flying over these rocks too. Like, every second is completely different. And I'm being completely mesmerised by this because, I mean, as you can hopefully see by this video, it is genuinely beautiful. You know, look at all those birds and look at the force and the interest in the sea. It's really something just beautiful and unique and different, and it's a fantastic spot, I think, to take some images and get something a little bit different. You see, one of the great things about that spot is that today, as I've said, it's a gloriously beautiful day, and there's barely a breeze in the air. There's just a little bit coming off the sea that you'd expect. But it's a very calm, tranquil, serene day. It's not a forceful, stormy day that you'd expect to have crashing waves. So having a telephoto lens or a zoom lens and being able to zoom into something like that, where there is motion and movement in the waves, it's allowing me to create quite dramatic and atmospheric shots on a day that is very far from dramatic and atmospheric. But by zooming in on something, even if it's just such a small part of the ocean and the coastline, I can create a feeling of drama and intensity in my images today, which is a complete contrast to what's going on. But it shows you, I guess, what you can do with photography if you've got the right lenses and the right equipment. You know, if you can zoom into something small, you can find wonder in landscapes in all weather conditions. Something that I touched on in the last video as well is this idea that in the summer, especially us people that do more landscape photography, we can really struggle because the days are so long. You don't want to be really shooting during the day because it's not the best light for landscape photography. But I guess doing other genres like this and actually focusing in on different parts of the landscape, different scenes, different wildlife, different subject matter, it allows you to come home with some really unique images. And I think these images are going to be very unique to the wildlife style images that I personally have ever taken before, but potentially something more unique than many of you who are watching this video have ever thought about taking when you're doing wildlife photography. You know, as I mentioned at the start of this video, you probably come to somewhere like this to get those iconic portrait shots of the birds or those flying shots of the birds, but a great way to do wildlife photography is also to hone in on those details, those like intricate details, and show off the landscape that these birds are inhabiting and enjoying. And that can really allow you to get those interesting and unique images, because the weather and what you're zooming in on can really dictate those shots, which adds or which allows for uniqueness. So let me show you these images that I've just been snapping here, and hopefully you'll see that every image is different. So you can probably tell that this video wasn't planned at all, but one thing I've learned recently is those unexpected photography opportunities that you find when you're out with your camera that you haven't planned are often the most rewarding and beneficial, and the ones that you learn the most from. Something that I'm becoming more aware of as a photographer is that I've stopped going out with expectations where possible, and instead, rather than thinking in my mind that I want a specific photograph, instead I wait until I get to that location and sort of hone in on what's going on and photograph what is really speaking to me, what is really, you know, being presented to me in the landscape. And normally that sort of spot is something that I possibly wouldn't consider photographing, but today, just looking over the cliff's edge, coming here not for photography but to cool down while I'm doing my close-up macro over there, and discovering a photography opportunity has actually led to some photographs that A, I wasn't expecting to take today, B, is unusual for me and something new, but which is really speaking to me, which I'm really enjoying, and which I think is a really unique and unusual images of wildlife. So thank you for watching this video. I really hope that you've kind of learned something from it, learned to sort of think outside the box when you're out with your camera, and especially when it comes to things like wildlife. Of course, get those iconic portrait and flying close-up shots that everybody's after, but also think about the landscape that those wildlife is in and what is speaking to you in the landscape. It doesn't matter if the wildlife you're photographing is really small in your frame. If the landscape around it and what it's interacting with is really speaking to you and telling a story, that is going to make for a much more captivating and unique image than your normal ones of those, like I say, portraits and up-close shots. So yeah, hope you've learned something from this video. A bit all over the place because it was unexpected, but it was something that I've enjoyed and I wanted to share with you. So as always, I want to say a huge thank you for watching. I hope you've been enjoying these sort of wildlife style videos this last week or so. Don't worry, I will be going back to my landscape possibly on Sunday. I don't know. I'm sort of just taking every day as it comes just now and just seeing what opportunities present to me. It's all about learning, getting back out there now that lockdown is easing, and just enjoying what is sort of in my local area. And I hope you've enjoyed following along with that with me, and you're getting out and enjoying your local area too. I look forward, as always, to hopefully seeing you all again next time.